What is up, my little Deinos? Vepsis here, your coach of the Helsinki Hydreigons, and we are back for the NCP Season 5 draft analysis for your Helsinki Hydreigons. And this is gonna be a very exciting and nerve-wracking season, cause check down in the description the coach lineup that we have. My goodness, it's gonna be a tough to be able to even repeat the success that we had last season when we were the number 2 seed. Regards to the regular season, we had a phenomenal record, even with a tough start in week 1 back then. And then we were able to get into all the way to the semifinals, and we were damaged roll away to get into the finals, but unfortunately it did not happen for us. But this season I do like my roster that I was able to select for myself to have chances to at least give myself another crack at it into the finals, but that's a long way ahead of us. And like I said, the lineup is stacked, so there's no guarantees that we can even get to that far yet, and there's a lot of work ahead of me. But when it comes to how the draft works, it's similar to last season. I'm actually exactly the same, but as a fresher memory, I'll be sliding right about now the document that shows a little bit of the point system, how it's been working and where the mons were selected. By now you see the mons that been already been selected, so there are gonna be some mons that are showing that they are not available anymore to be picked. But basically the draft system works that you have 120 points for 11 mons to select, and you cannot select more or less mons in this draft, and obviously you have to retain in that point in itself. You cannot overspend it by any means. So that's basically how the draft works. And when it comes to the order in the draft, I was the 3rd pick out of the 16 coaches, so good luck me, I suppose. I don't get that lucky too often that I get a high pick, but it also meant because I was 3rd, unless Chagaboto or Ushifo single strike went, or if either of them, I should say, fell down to me, those were guaranteed for me to take. Basically what was my mindset, but spoiler alert, neither of them did not make to me. So I have to sit down, think through that, okay, what do I really feel like using this season? What feels to be the most logical choice and makes it easiest for me to draft around it? And now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 1. And as my round 1 choice, I decided to go after Tornadus Theria. Now this mon was been something that I've been eager and really interested to try out in Generation 8, cause with heavy duty boots and access to nasty plot, this mod became a lot better than it already was in previous generations, and its speed tier is phenomenal, and that is the premier reason why I went after this mod. I wanted to pick something in round 1 that is an elite speed tier. Now I know there are things like Seraora and Tapu Koko, which definitely were in my radar as well to think about, but because I've already used both of those mons rather recently, either in my Wi-Fi leagues or in a showdown league, I didn't want to go after something that I just recently used either once or multiple times in itself. So I felt like for sake of draft analysis, something more fun for me to talk about a newer mon that I haven't really got to use almost at all in draft league format. Now it's a little bit scary if you don't draft a rain around this thing, cause as we know, it is strongest flying stab that it wants to rely on is Hurricane, and we know that it has some accuracy issues, but in this season we just gotta go there and click that move and be like, we're landing this, we don't even think about missing it, we're landing it, and that's it. That's how we have to play this season, basically, if I don't draft Rain, and that's kind of my intentions as well, that while I thought about drafting Rain, it wasn't something that I was completely committing myself to do so. But I think just having that elite speed tier mod with a phenomenal coverage and regenerator ability is one of the best abilities in draft league format, and competitively speaking as well, for any kind of format in itself. So I think Tornadus Theria is a phenomenal mon to build around with, and I have to make sure that its obvious counters being bulky elected types, bulky rock types or steel types, something that's nature that usually try to check this thing. I have to have good offensive foundations and breakers support it and deal around with it, and obviously cover its own weaknesses as well while at it. So now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 2. And now as my round 2 pick, I decided to go after one of the biggest steals in my opinion in this point system draft, what I saw from the tiers, being Galarian Slowking at 10 points. I cannot believe they made this mon only 10 points. That is biggest reason why I jumped so early on this mon, and when a lot of other courses in the league were kind of surprised that, oh, he went after this round too, when there were so many higher tier mons still not to be grasped. But I wasn't too worried about my higher tier mon that I'm gonna be taking, because I was very confident it would last for me in round 3. So I wanted to just secure this before Olivia Sama or Ogabina could do their next following 2 picks, because I was very confident the mon that I wanna get from higher tier will last for the next round. But when it comes to Galarian Slowking, you can see right now already its move pool is phenomenal, even as a generation 8 mon, which kind of one of the biggest arguments for those mons not to be picked because they don't get access to Toxic is also the fact that their coverage can be somewhat lackluster depending on which mon you're picking. But for Galarian Slowking's case, it's actually very good that it does get a lot of different kind of coverage moves, and I love the fact that it gives me already a Regenerator core to work with, and it's a very not passive Regenerator core by any means. I love when I use Galarian Slowking by the end of the last season that compared to Amoonguss, it's not passive, it does actual damage to opponent as well, can be very hard to switch into, and you can also turn into a fat breaker as well. It doesn't need to necessarily always wall your opponent, it can also set up in itself, and with its coverage when you select the proper moves on it, it can beat opposing fat as well, and that's what I love about Galarian Slowking. It's so hard to kill, but it's also so hard to switch into, and I love about that in Galarian Slowking. So that's kind of one of the primary reasons why to bring it back for this season as well, and I wanted to secure this one early because I do think it is one of the biggest deals in this draft pool itself. But now, let's go and see what I was able to select in round 3 that goes so well with the Galarian Slowking as well, because of the weaknesses that it has with Ground, Dark, and Ghost. And as my round 3 pick, I was able to select myself my boy, the mascot and my favorite one of all time, Hydreigon, man, and I love how this one fits together on my team, and I'm so happy that it still was there for me to grab, and I knew it would last for me in a round 3, because I knew Olivia Sama and Ogalpina had no reasons to pick it, so I was like, you know what, let's get a couple of Galarian Slowking with Hydreigon, and like I said about Galarian Slowking, its 3 weaknesses that it only has is Ground, Dark, and Ghost. Coupled with Levitate, Hydreigon covers each of them beautifully, man. And I love the fact that I already have a little bit of U-turn momentum core between Tornado Starion and Hydreigon. It gives me that strong special breaker on the team. It can be a phenomenal Sculptor as well, but it can also be defensive. And Hydreigon, it's so fitting that is my mascot as well for competitively speaking, because it can be so versatile what you can do with it. Its move pool is phenomenal, man. The only thing that bothers it is obviously those pesky fairy types, but I do already have a Galarian Slowking to deal with those and switching on them rather easily, and my next pick will be killing those and love to come in for free when Hydreigon will be luring with them in U-turn. So I know ins and outs obviously about my own mascot, that what it struggles with, what roles it really thrives in, and now I just have to make sure that those pesky fairy types can become basically a non-factor other than trying to deal with my Hydreigon in each matchup. And I want to make this one shine in this season as well, and I'm really excited how it pairs with my other 2 picks. So now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 4. And as my round 4 pick, I decided to go after my offensive ground type. That is going to be Nidoking. And now some people were surprised that why do you stack already on the typings of poison already twice when we are 4 picks in, but hear me out. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to select Nidoking was that I wanted to avoid the scenario that I'm drafting a offensive ground type that I already used a lot of times in Wi-Fi leagues. And that basically is Diggersby. I didn't want to pick that mod again, not because I don't like the mod, but I wanted to avoid that. I'm telling you, 5th time in this generation already a draft analysis. I don't think it's 5 times, but basically, you get the idea. I didn't want to draft a mod that I have drafted so many times already. I wanted to pick something different when it comes to my Wi-Fi content. And Nidoking was the best offensive ground type that I saw being available. And I took crap on it because I think it fits so well so well with the Tornado Stereo and Hydreigon when you really think about the things that they are learning. Tornado Stereo, like I said in round 1 pick when I did it, was that it learns in bulky electric types, bulky steel or rock types essentially. That's basically typing wise that makes more sense that it learns in. Nidoking as a pot current type loves to coming on those and just start breaking shit apart. And when it comes to Hydreigon, those pesky fairy types are usually the biggest issues for it to be able to do its job well, and Nidoking just comes in and loves taking care of those as well for that thing as well. And when it comes to the ground weakness, that Galarian Slowking and Nidoking will be shared because both of them are pop poison type. I have a Tornado Stereo, I have a Hydreigon, I have still several more picks to go. I don't worry about a ground weakness, man. When I see the synergy myself, how well they fit together offensively wise, and I value that synergy a lot, and that is why I went after Nidoking with the Shield Force, with couple of with Life Orb, with the coverage, man. I love the fact that my mons get so much coverage, man. It's so nice when it comes to team building aspect. When I can pressure my opponent and worry about the certain coverage moves that I can select in. And that makes their job a lot harder to deal with my offensive moves or with some of my defensive moves later on. Just having great coverage is phenomenal in Draft League format, and I love Nidos for that. They are one of my favorite ground types for that reason. So now, let's go and see what I was able to select in round 5. And as my round 5 pick, I decided to go after Mienshao as my offensive fighting type that I wanted to have in this draft for sure. And I had between Terrakion and Mienshao that which one I would take in this round 5, and I had to select Nidoking before either of them because I knew Ogalbina would want Nidoking because how much sense it made to his draft, and I didn't manage to snipe him. And then after Ogalbina was making his pick, Olivia somehow actually picked Terrakion as one of her will picks. So it kind of worked in a way that I was able to still get Mienshao, and I'm very happy with this as well. I think Mienshao has been one of the mons that I found to be one of the most annoying mons to deal with in this generation, because its speed tier with 105 is actually very good in Galarian decks in my opinion, and I love the fact that it also got access to now close combat, so you're not necessarily dealing with just high jump kick and with the disadvantages that move can have it sometimes, either with missing or opponent going for a protect or having a ghost type in general. So I love the fact that I know I have options with my fighting step, and I love the fact that it gets access to Regenerator. Now I have already 3 mons with a Regenerator. Spoiler alert, that's not gonna be the end of that as well. We have 1 more to go. Guess right now what that is gonna be. Well, it's gonna be the last Regenerator mod that I'm taking later on in this draft, but when it comes to Mienshao, I wanted to have an offensive fighting type coupled with the Tornado Stereo, because I want to deal with those pesky rock types or steel types that try to wall it, and I want to take advantage of it. And I love that it's a fighting type that can get access to U-turn as well, because that means that there are gonna be things like bulky ghost types, bulky fairy types, or anything that nature, or bulky psychic types, I guess, that try to come in on me. And so, and I have plethora of things that loves to come in on those for free. So I love how the Mienshao fits together already with my first 4 picks, and how I can take advantage of the things that it will be luring in and try to deal with it. So I'm excited for this one. I never used in Draft League format. This is probably one of the most I would have to name that what are you most excited to use again, or for the first time. It's between Mienshao and Galarian Slowking, honestly. Those two, besides like Hydreigon, Nidoking and Tornadoes, I love a lot of my mons, but Mienshao, because it's so new to me, I'm really excited for it, and I think it has a phenomenal fit and purpose for us. So now, let's go and see what I was able to select in round 6. And in round 6, I decided to go after my Steel type and a little bit of some bulk on this team. And we needed some Stealth Cocks on this team, because the only thing that can set those up thus far is Nidoking. And Nidoking doesn't want to click those kind of moves too often, it wants to just tear shit apart instead. So we went after Resisteel, one of our MVPs of the PBR Season 3 that just ended for us. I don't think we could have made to the semifinals without this one. Resisteel was really solid for us. Like it was the defensive backbone that team desperately needed, and I think for this roster it's gonna be a phenomenal fit as well. We needed a very solid ice resist. I did not have ice resist yet on my team, and I had 3 things to weak to it. So I think Resist 2 as a steel type was the perfect fit, and I know what it can do right now. Body press coupled with iron defense and its phenomenal defenses, that also makes it not as easier of a passive mode to take advantage of anymore. It can actually sweep teams right now. Spoiler alert, I have done that in a BBR. I 6-0'd someone with Resist Steel that is part of this league. Like, this thing can be really scary if you're underprepared for it and don't deal with it properly. But like we already know about Resist Steel, what it's been able to do throughout the generations, this mon is so hard to kill. The pure steel typing is so good because it's so little weaknesses and so many resistance that it has in itself, and the defensive stats that it has, 150 on both sides. You can really mold it to your liking and make sure that it can take the hits as you like from each side. And I love about that in Resist Steel. This mod in the past usually has been a little bit of unlucky charm for me. It usually got hacked a lot in previous generations, and that's why I kind of shied away from it, but I always respected what it did. But in this generation, something just clicked with it in that BBR Season 3 that made me really appreciate what Resist Steel does again, and I do expect it to do well for us this season as well. So now, let's go and see what I was able to select in round 7. And in round 7, we finally are bringing back one of the captains of the previous seasons that we have had in NCP when it comes to UBL. Basically, any Generation 8 league, Slowbro has been always part of it. Sean is back, baby, and I love it, man. This mon is one of my favorite mons to use right now in this generation, because Regenerator coupled with that teleport, the minus priority move, giving me guarantee switching to my offensive modes, has been one of the best assets for me in team building aspect throughout this generation. And I love the fact that it covers more than ice weakness for us. It gives me basically a ground resist, because this thing doesn't just die simply enough to be said about it. And I love the fact that it has such a wide move pool as well, because it's pop psychic, and it gives me a phenomenal fighting resist as well, besides the 2 things that I've already had, or actually 3 things when you consider Nidoking, Galarian Slowking, and Tornado Starion. But this thing can really tank those physical hits like it's nothing, man, and I've been loving this mon throughout this generation. But funny enough, just breaking the 4th wall, I originally didn't plan for this mon. Funny enough, I tried to actually persuade myself not to pick this mon again and try a new bulky water type that gets momentum that I was really intrigued to try it yet again, or I haven't used in a long time, which was Rotom-Waz, Swampert, or Primarina. Now, those were the things that I was more so intrigued to try out this draft, but all of those went away. A lot of water types were already gone by this point. There was only Lantern and this thing that were left. And funny enough, how the draft ended up working, and there was a grace period, I ended up originally drafting Lantern, but the guy who drafted Slowbro actually dropped from the league, and the guy who replaced him was willing to trade Slowbro back. So Sean, just by the fate, I guess, is back with us, and like you see already on the layout in itself and its stats in itself, it's so good. It's one of the best bulky water types. I believe it's the best one, but that's my personal bias for obvious reasons. But I do love how it fits on the team, and I think it's gonna do always well for us. It always does so well for us. Like, Sean doesn't disappoint us. It is too good, man, what it does. So now, let's go and see what we were able to select in round 8. And as my round 8 pick, I was able to select myself Arcanine. And guess what that this mod got access to in this generation? Teleport. And we know how much I love that move in throughout this generation, using with my Slowbro. So now I have a teleport core as well to go along with, and this mod is so good with that. Coupled the fact that now we have heavy duty boots as an item. So fire type, a bulky fire type like Arcanine that can go offensive, can be so much better than it already was in previous generations. Like, this mod was one of the better fire types, or the best fire type in a middle tiers that you could be selecting. And now it's just like a non-argument at this point, because when you think about it, do you rather have a pure offensive fire type, but it cannot go any shape or form defensive? Or do you rather have Arcanine that can be somewhat offensive, not as good as something like Darmanitan in Soul, but can be one hell of a wall? Think about that. Like, Arcanine is phenomenal because of that, and it got access to also some key coverage moves that it was lacking a little bit on its move pool to deal with certain things, and one of the biggest ones those that it got access to was play rough, and that is gonna be very key asset to when I'm going up against some tracker types that could otherwise try to use this thing as a setup fodder, combine the fact that they will carry substitute for Will-O-Wisp. Now I have play rough to couple with that and be able to actually hit them back hard enough so that they are easily be revenge killer with one of my other mods. So I do love how Arcanine can do in this generation. I think it's one of the best fire types by far, when you're not considering things like Victini. And speaking of that, this mon can deal with a lot of the higher tier mons that were selected by the other teams that I think Arcanine will be really handy when I go up against him. So I'm really happy with this mon, excited to be using in this generation, and now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 9. And as my round 9 pick, I was able to select myself Whimsicott, which is going to be my fairy and grass type to the draft. And those were two key typings that I wanted to address with my last 3 picks, and it was going to be very hard for me to accomplish that if I weren't going for after this thing. I wasn't going to pick a Shiinotic for this role, so Whimsicott is going to be the one that we're going to be having this season. I love the fact that it provides me some elite speed tier besides Tornado Hysteria with its 116 speed tier, and I love the fact that it also provides me some prankster utility support with Defog, with Encore, and couple of that with also access to U-turn when it's going to be having some obvious things that it can wall its dual type, and whether they're gonna be poison type, a fire type, or a steel type. I already have things that can wall break through those kind of typings. So I love the fact how the Whimsicott fit into the team, and therefore it's gonna be giving my ways to get around some of the pesky setup sweepers that I saw being drafted by other courses. So it gives me something in the back that I can utilize myself or make my opponents second guess if they can really set up and sweep versus me when I have something like Whimsicott in my roster that I can use against them. So that is going to be my round 9 pick. And now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 10. Keep in mind, my last 2 picks have 3 points between them that I can spend on them, so there won't be any kind of world beaters that I have left to be selecting. And as my round 10 pick, I was able to select myself Sableye from the 2-point category, which is pretty good value if you ask me when it comes to Sableye. Now I know the Prankster does get nerfed when you go up against opposing dark type, so in that regard, some of the mons that are sharing its typing will be able to wall its supporting moves that it tries to go after, but even still, I think in 2 points it's gonna be a great value. It gives me that Prankster, Will-O-Wisp, and Encore. Similar to Whimsicott's Prankster Encore, this also means that now the setup sweepers that might go up against me that will be having a tougher time to execute their setup sweep versus me if I do bring either of these two into that game. And when it comes to team building, it will put pressure on them to think twice if they want to do that versus me anymore, whereas without them they could have definitely tried to do that kind of shenanigans versus me. So in that regard, I think Sableye will be a very valuable asset. It has some cool options as well, very niche, but worthwhile mention is that it does get access to Rain Dance, so Prankster Rain Dance is an option. This could be my Politoed or Pelipper, very budget wise, for my team, for supporting my Tornado Hysteria. I don't see that being a case for too often, if at all. But something worth to mention, that it does get access to Rain Dance. Unlike Whimsicott, unfortunately, it doesn't get access to that. I don't understand why Whimsicott can summon Rain. Come on now, you're a grass type, you would love to have Rain every now and then. But either way, Sableye, I guess, is gonna be our rain setter if we ever need to have one, but more importantly, the other supporting moves are really useful for it being 2-pointer for us. And now let's go and see what is going to be clearly the MVP of our draft at 1 point. And in the last round of the draft, I picked a mod that I would thought ever in my lifetime I will be drafting this mod for a standard draft league format, by the way. This is not a low tier either. We drafted a damn Dunsparce on our team. Now this is a 1-pointer mod that I was looking at, like, is there anything that I would want for a 1 point since I have that left? And I figured that, you know what, I don't have a normal type, I might as well grab it for that. It gives me one of the most broken moves in the game and broken abilities with a couple of Eclair and serene craze. So it can be very annoying if I get to bring it into these games, but we'll see how that's gonna be going, as we can tell from the stats. Besides its very respectable HP stat, it is pretty mediocre once you go down the stats in itself and to the ladder, but it does get access to stealth rocks, it does get access to reliable recovery in roost, so if the matchup really allows it to be brought, there is some uses for it, but like I said already about Sableye, besides my draft as a whole, I love how it's being done together from Tornado Stinger to Wims. You got everything in between that category. I'm very satisfied with, and I don't see myself breaking out from those things. But when it comes to my last 2 months, I could see them being shuffled around throughout the season, and then once I see my schedule and see that what teams I need to defeat in order to go all the way to the finals and maybe fight for the championship, these last 2 picks will be the ones that I'll be looking and being thinking like, okay, how can I really address on these 2 picks, and maybe something comes up throughout the season that I can fit better than these 2. But that is going to be the draft in itself. I'm very satisfied how it came together. We have a very strong defensive backbone coupled with very strong offensive core that pair really well together. From my point of view, the only typing that I wish I could have added into this roster, and we'll see down the road if I can, at least a budget pick would be electric type. That is the one typing that I kind of wish I could have afforded to, but we'll see if I end up making that kind of change with my last 2 picks down the road. Let me know in the comment section below how you like my draft, what are the things that you're most excited about it, or what are the things you would have done different. Criticism is always welcome, because that can always help me down the road to make this team better and do better this season for you as you've been following it. Make sure to check out all the coaches in the league when their draft analysis go up today. Like I said, the lineup is very stacked, very excited to see their sides as well, so make sure to check those out. But until week 1 battle when we go up against JV, thank you for watching, and I'm gonna be seeing you guys later.